clusters. So there'll be 4 clusters, and we'll move into cluster number 1 in just a moment, strategic support departments. So as we hear the presentations in cluster 1, there'll actually be 5 presentations. So we'll just move from one presentation to the next, and then after the last presentation, which will be the city attorney, then we'll open it up for council questions and answers and discussion. So just please hold on your questions until we work through the cluster. The presenters know in this cluster that they have 15 minutes, and I'm sitting right there, and I'll just start tugging and poking and somehow getting your attention. 2 minutes, 1 minute, and then the hook comes out if you're up there for 15 minutes, okay? So with that said, then let me turn it over to Deanna, who will set up what's behind cluster 1.
So part of how we designed this was like city departments that have common areas of focus, and so these are obviously up first because they are our internal service departments. They support our departments that provide customer service to our public and continue to look within the organization of how to strengthen it. What's also important here is a lot of times these are considered the softer services that are easy to go and grab whenever there's projected deficits. And then regaining services or capacity for them is often difficult. And so we wanted to walk you through each of these departments so that you hear what's on their plate, what they've been working on, and initiatives that they have to address in order to keep our services with our external service departments nice and strong. So we're going to start with human resources.
Thank you, Deanna. Good morning, Mayor, Council, City Manager, staff, and the public. Liz Brown, Director of Human Resources. So I'm going to begin the operational priorities for the Human Resources Department. As Deanna said, Human Resources is an internal service department, and we're also a service department to the community. Forgot I'm the one that drives this. Sorry. So the Human Resources Department is broken down into 2 areas in the budget: employee benefits and records, and recruitment and selection. And we have 15 FTE in our department and a budget of $3.5 million. Human Resources has a legal obligation to provide services to the city and the employees. The city currently has a budgeted 1,105 FTE and approximately 800 as-needed employees. As Human Resources continues to maintain a staff of 15 FTE, while HR staff levels have not kept pace with the city increased workload, we do continue to provide the following services: recruitment and selection, class and comp, benefits administration, employee relations, labor relations, equal employment opportunity, employee risk management, and I want to emphasize that's just employee risk. That's workers' compensation, for instance. Employee recognition and wellness, we have a small program there, and employee development, which is also a very small program that we would like to see grow. If you look at this Gantt chart, the long-range planning, you'll see the rows going across. Those are long-range and steady. They're constant in human resources. As Deanna had said earlier, these are legal obligations. So we have benefits administration that has to continue, labor relations, employee relations, recruitment and selection, and risk management. The shorter bars are either projects we're working on or they are seasonal. So Affordable Care Act is a law. We're just finishing that up. PeopleSoft upgrades are pretty standard, but they are project. FLSA Flores case, that's another law. Employee wellness program we want to develop and more seasonal. Employee development and certifications, that's a project that we want to grow. And as Deanna mentioned earlier, we would like to have centralized and pay attention to a lot more. Class and compensation is an area that we need to focus on. And of course, our recruitment process improvements. We serve the city's 14 departments in the community, including the following: benefits administration for over 1,000 employees. And that means we manage their medical, dental, vision, vacation, sick leave, whatever types of questions they may have, new hire orientations, open enrollment, retirement counseling. We manage the Affordable Care Act, again a law, administer some more laws, FMLA, Family Medical Leave Act, and the California Family Rights Act, as well as the Americans with Disabilities Act. A lot of illegal expectations from us. We work very closely with the City Attorney's Office and other departments. The legal obligations we work closely with the City Attorney's Office are, for instance, this year we started off 2018 with 12 new laws on the books, when we have to complete these and make sure that all of them are being followed. As you know, we coordinate special events such as the annual Employee Service Awards and Take Your Child to Work Day. That takes months of planning and preparation, and many departments participate, including Parks and Recreation, Public Works, the other departments, City Manager's Office, of course, and you folks, and we really appreciate the time you give to us. Employee wellness events include an annual health and benefits fair, which we purposefully conduct right before open enrollment so that our employees can talk to different vendors about different medical providers. We conduct blood drives, flu shots, and we recently had our second annual, very successful 12 Days of Wellness over the holiday season. And just a snapshot of that, at the lunch hour, we spent 15 minutes maybe walking around the block or doing a yoga stretch or having a healthy snack, oranges, apples, that kind of thing. That was a nice little thing to do. We coordinate, organize, and/or train employees on following topics. We help the city coordinate the heat illness prevention program, the police department with their sergeant supervisor training. We provide mandated trainings like sexual harassment. We do skill building trainings like resume and interview skills, customer service training. But one of the things that are missing is we do this when we can. It's not on an ongoing basis. Recruitment, testing, and selection for all city employees. This is a common theme you're going to hear about throughout the day. This is a very time-involved process, regardless of how many staff you have. And then not having enough staff to support everyone makes it even that much more difficult. But just a couple steps so you know how involved it is. As soon as a position is vacant, we, the Human Resources Department, works with all of the managers within each of their departments to go over their job descriptions to make sure they're current, especially if those positions have been filled for a very long time. Then we strategize on the length of the recruitment, where to target our outreach, and we obviously open it, we screen applications for minimum quals, and then we will do different testings. We'll do written, practicals, so we could see if people know how to do certain things, and or physical agility exams. And then we interview, and then there's backgrounding. So this is a very time-intensive process, but it's necessary. As Deanna said earlier, we're under civil service rules. In 2016-2017, we conducted 87 recruitments, and over the past 5 years, those have increased by 43%, quite an increase. We processed 241 new hires and promotions, and over the past 5 years, the number of applications to process also increased by 37%. We conduct and oversee class and comp studies. We're staffed to our Civil Service Commission. We manage our workers' compensation claims, which is also a very time-intensive responsibility in human resources. We make sure we work with, we have to follow the law. We work with our city attorney, and we also work with outside workers' comp attorneys. We talk to the injured or ill employee. We work with our third-party administrator on workers' compensation. We try to find out ways that we can bring the employees, well, get them healed and bring them back sooner. And as you may recall from last year, our Occupational Medical Provider Alliance awarded the City of Santa Clara as the Employer of the Year on our workers' compensation processes and practices out of 6,000 worthy employers. So we were very proud of that. We also manage ergonomic assessments. We coordinate the Department of Transportation drug and alcohol, random drug testing, and many other types of required testings. Our Equal Employment Opportunity Office provides mandated sexual harassment prevention training, and that is also another legal requirement. We conduct investigations, again, another legal, highly legal requirement. We receive complaints and mediate conflicts. HR hired over 128 new employees and promoted 113 in fiscal year 16-17. We assisted the mayor and city council with the hiring of our wonderful city manager, and we included a new step in this process, and that was including the community. We outreached to them to hear what they would like from our city manager. Some additional legal components: we met and conferred with the employees of the city on constructive receipt to bring the city current with IRS law. We worked with finance and IT and implemented the Affordable Care Act mandates. We're working in coordination with IT and finance whenever we have any upgrades to our PeopleSoft payroll system, which we just had, to 9.2 on November 13, 2017. These upgrades are essential because they help with the streamlining and efficiencies, as our city manager was discussing earlier. HR with finance assistance aligned the as-needed employees pay scale to the city's new minimum wage ordinance to $13 per hour. Last year, we negotiated 4 successful MOUs, the Police Officers Association, Police Management, AFSCME, and Public Safety Non-Sworn, and we hosted another successful year of Take Your Child to Work Day and the annual employee recognition event. Upcoming policy issues. Workforce Development Program. This is very important to the city manager and to human resources. She has asked us right away coming in, we need to look at training from an enterprise perspective globally, providing development opportunities to all employees. And this is great for city morale as well, where as you saw or heard from me earlier, we do certain trainings, but it's not to the entire city. And we need to do a lot more of that. It needs to be more strategic and broad. The police and fire staffing reviews, we are certainly sitting right now at the table. Things are going well, and we're negotiating with International Association of Firefighters, the Employees Association, AFSCME, Miscellaneous Management, and Fire Management. So our constraints is staff resources. Human resources staffing levels have not kept pace with the increased work growth demands of the city, including the need to fill positions sooner, or to create a formal employee development program, which is the training piece. And we would like to have a centralized risk management program as part of one of the goals that has been discussed quite a bit today. We would like to be able to accelerate our hiring practice, but we run into the following constraints. And it's our own staffing limitations in HR. Automation, that would help, and it's helped a lot already with IT and GORF's assistance. One of our constraints, though, is huge, and it's not just our issue, it's everywhere. The region's competitive job market influences our ability to recruit within a limited pool of candidates. Our competition is not only with the public sector anymore, it's also with the private sector. And quite frankly, it's very expensive to move or live here. Another area of opportunity, as we discussed, is the absence of a formal centralized risk manager. So this is our opportunity for us to create a centralized risk management program. And some of the things that it would include, besides what we do for employees, would be managing the city's liability claims and activities, and managing and monitoring contracts. And I'm sure we would be working closely with the city attorney's office as well. We also we're trying to evaluate mechanisms to lessen recruitment time to support the department's need to fill these vacant positions sooner. With Walter's assistance, we've already streamlined a couple forms, right when he came in, so that's already helped move things along a lot quicker. Improving and streamlining business practices by implementing more automation. The city manager, when she came on board, she made it very clear to all of us that she wants us to streamline and find efficiencies. We needed to do that, and we need to continue to do that. And here's an example of what just happened. As we went live with our PeopleSoft system, we have the opportunity for automation of time cards. And yet some of our employees who have access to this particular area, they're still using the paper. So that's something we need to get out and train people to show them it's not a difficult thing to do, and it could save a ton of time for everybody. And that goes into create enterprise-wide training opportunities. That would be one of those opportunities, and it's just a simple fix. Conduct a citywide employee satisfaction survey. This is something that was on our to-do list. We need to determine if there is an opportunity for us to create an employee engagement program. I know this was one of those big ones from last year. And Deanna is really behind this, and she wants us to have this implemented by the second half of this year. And a couple of other items that we need is creating a method in PeopleSoft to track FLSA overtime hours for a certain case law that just came, and to conduct more class and comp studies. It would just be good to have and do. So in summary, balancing citywide service demands with the current staffing levels in human resources is needed. We need to continue to meet our legal obligations, build citywide morale, and training programs. We need to be more automated and have more streamlined systems. And in this current job market, we need to find ways to be competitive with this region, to attract applicants for city jobs, and then retain them, and then engage our staff. Thank you. And
good morning again. And I just have to say I'm no longer acting. I'm not an actor. I'm the actual director of finance.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So with the finance department, we have 61 full-time employees. And these are the categories that we do. I'd just like to point out that half of those full-time employees rest in our utility billing section. So that means that 30 employees are responsible for doing the citywide fiscal planning and administration, accounting and financial reporting, which includes accounts payable and payroll, accounts receivable, our budget development and management, debt and treasury management, the stadium authority, and our purchasing and warehouse services. And we have an operating budget of $11.5 million. Just some service delivery highlights that we've been able to implement and work on is the PeopleSoft financial system upgrade that Liz had mentioned. We were able to finish the payroll HR, and now we're in the process of upgrading our accounting financial system, PeopleSoft. And then we've done the North Star utility billing system upgrade, a business license software upgrade. We're in the process of implementing advanced metering infrastructure, and then are in the process of doing an RFP development for a new utility customer self-serve portal. And this has been something that the public has really wanted to be able to look at their accounts, and we haven't had a really user-friendly tool, so we are in the process of doing that. We are in the process of doing transit occupancy tax compliance audits, getting an auditor that will actually go out and do those compliance, especially in this area around the stadium, and due to the CFD, we would like to have those looked at. And then one area that kind of gets left out, because we are always talking about accounting and budgeting, we actually read 90,000 utility meters monthly, and we invoice approximately 62,000 utility accounts each month. Some accomplishments: we've received the CSMFO Budget Award for the 2016-17 Annual Operating and Capital Improvement Plan budgets. We've created the Public Agencies Post-Employment Pension Trust Program to start pre-funding our pension obligations. We completed the cost allocation plan and the user fee study. We completed the first comprehensive stadium authority budget. I know in the past the budgets were much smaller, 2 or 3 pages, so we were able to do a more comprehensive document this year. We improved and expanded on the Stadium Authority quarterly reports, and some of that is due to the Harvey Rose recommendations, so we were able to add those into those quarterly reports. And we were able to revise the city's monthly status report, which we think is much more user-friendly. We actually break out the general fund so you can actually see it by revenue sources and by departments, which makes it a lot more valuable for us. We completed the Utility Management Information System Infrastructure Upgrade project. Some upcoming policy issues, as I spoke to you about when I was talking about the budget and the 10-year plan, strategies for solving our future budget deficits, revenue initiatives, cost control initiatives, and use of reserves, and then unanticipated expenditures or fiscal impacts that may come up as we had discussed earlier. The tax on the legal sale of, and that should be cannabis, but we put marijuana, but Prop 64, and there are actual drop dead dates on this, so we have to be, really working on this, and so some staff will have to be realigned to help on this. And then we would like to, and I know that was mentioned today, we'd like to do a development impact fee study and kind of compare ourselves to other organizations and see what fees we're not charging. So our operational constraints, our existing financial system, PeopleSoft, is not designed for local governments. It's not a local government fund accounting, and it's costly to the city, very costly. And it's also very time-consuming for staff. It takes a lot of my staff to actually keep the system going. We mentioned it several times, and you'll hear this a common theme on the purchasing function. It's decentralized. We do have my purchasing manager retired in December, so we do have the opportunity to realign and look at this area and try to do the more centralized that we've talked about. So that just gives us some opportunities. We have fiscal and administrative processes that are antiquated and labor intensive. We're a very paper-driven organization, and especially in finance. So it's not only trying to get my staff to let go of that. Sometimes it becomes a crutch because they've always done that. So we are working on that, but it's still, there's a lot of paper in finance. Our office space is very inadequate. I don't know if anyone has ever been in the finance section area, but we are all very crammed in together. And then we have key vacancies within the department. So in this chart, you can see finance has where we are constantly churning. We do, the same thing. So for half the year, we're doing the audit and the CAFR, and then we go right into the budget. So some of this is routine. It keeps going. So we have staff all aboard on doing that. So while we're doing the city audit and the CAFR, we're also working on the Stadium Authority financial statements and that budget. So there's a lot of crossover on, you can see that they all kind of go together. If we have a project such as this PeopleSoft upgrade, it does take a lot of time. We work weekends to implement it, and then when we're talking about a cannabis tax implementation initiative, that's going to take some staff away from other areas. So it is hard for us sometimes to take on these bigger projects. We are actually wanting to do a new financial system upgrade. We'd like to go out and see if there's something that would actually be more user-friendly and cost-effective for the city. And if we do that, as you know, anytime you do an implementation of that great magnitude, you actually have to have a team to actually implement that. So that will take some people off of the areas where we do our routine items. And then the last line, the citywide monthly status reports, that's just every month we do those quarterly or monthly, the citywide monthly reports, and then we do the stadium quarterly reports. So areas of opportunity, we have improvement on the budget development practices, and we are actually working on that. We're going to be implementing a lot of those this year. You'll see a little bit different. One of the ones I think that the council will be interested in is we're actually going to break out the Stadium Authority costs in the general fund. We've talked about how public safety is charged in the general fund, and there's no clear way for the council or staff to see that. We're going to break that out into its own division or program, so you'll be able to see that. We're talking, as I mentioned earlier, restructuring of the purchasing division. Review areas within the department where job duties can be combined. An example, we actually have a accounts receivable person in our utility billing section, but then we also have a accounts receivable in our accounting that does miscellaneous receivables. So we want to look, is this an area where I can combine and use the staffing in a different way? Streamline processes, this goes to the paper. Are there ways that we can kind of do things more automated? And move forward on the analysis of a new enterprise resource planning or financial system. And then implement online budgeting software that connects stakeholders to the city budget. We'd like to have a tool online on our website where the public can actually look and see at the budget and what the expenditures are. So in summary, we do have some constraints. We have capacity issues. As I mentioned, we have limited amount of staff, a lot of projects that are coming on the horizon or we're in the process of. The increasing stadium authority workload is a constraint for us. We have key vacancies right now. Budget development's a challenge. Obviously, when I went over the 10-year forecast, you see that we have these rising pension costs and deferred projects. And then just department-wide system upgrades are very labor-intensive. Thank you.
Angie, can I ask you just a super quick question? How old is our existing financial system?
I think PeopleSoft, I want to say 2009. 2002. Oh, 2002. So I came on in 2012, and I thought it was before that.
Oh, that's telling. That's telling. Thank you very much.
Oh, we did an upgrade in like a major upgrade in 2009, but okay. So he's saying 2002.
All right, thank you.
Wow. Good morning. Gaurav Garg, Chief Information Officer, and looking forward to presenting the technology track to you. So the IT department is the newest department in the city. We were created in around Y2K with 8.5 FTEs, of which there's FTEs as well as needed staff. Currently, there's 3 vacancies. We're predominantly an outsourced services model, as you know, with the entire gamut of services provided: the help desk and end user services, infrastructure, network, enterprise applications and web, enterprise GIS and telecommunications, provided by this full service provider that's working very closely with the city. Our total budget for the year is $11.2 million. So the IT department exists in response to providing services to each of the departments and in actually supporting core service delivery to the residents. And we're providing full service, a spectrum of services in support of that, the city's mission in service to the public, as well as directly impacting the quality of life and community, whether it's communicating with the public or whether it's the ability to provide transactional services or better information for service delivery within the departments itself. From a speeds and feeds point of view of what we do, we have a total of 180 business applications within the city. That's a pretty staggering number of business applications, like we talked about the financial management system, the HR management system, the agenda management system. So there's 180, and I like to look at them as pets, not pieces of furniture, because they need to be cared and fed for. We provide email, office productivity, all of the staff requests that call our help desk. We got 6,000 tickets last year. All of the phone systems, the enterprise contact center for utility billing, for all of the customer service agents that we have, 1,500 user devices. These are desktops, laptops, tablets, etc. Provide indoor public Wi-Fi at over 40 city locations, and we spent a great deal of time and effort around Super Bowl and even after that doing a signal sense study, improving it, and so we're very proud of having very good Wi-Fi within city facilities in support of the public access. Staff training and bringing them onto speed with respect to the system upgrades is a key part of what we do. There's a lot more that needs to be done, but an ongoing focus is providing a training program, and we conducted 65 IT training classes last year with 445 satisfied students who were trained through that process. The staggering number of 1.2 million visits to the city website, that's about 100,000 visits every month. And so just managing all of the infrastructure behind the scenes, the content management system, and working very closely with the city manager's office and the departments in response to keeping the content fresh. 42,000 folks are signed up to our e-notify system. Again, a very, very high number of people who subscribed and opted in to get email updates and what's happening around the city. And then finally, a very robust and full service set of GIS services both internally and for staff to share information that's happening within the departments and the development projects, etc. Some key accomplishments. We upgraded the city's technology infrastructure, as is a consistent theme through each of the department presentations that you've heard so far, and then you'll hear further. Each of the departments is extremely reliant on the technology. As they implement some of these systems, we're taking care of the underlying technology infrastructure in a centralized way, which is more efficient, and then it takes them out of having to deal with servers and technology in their departments. We've increased the Wi-Fi, as I talked about. We have a very robust application portfolio that I talked about. We upgraded 18 applications last year. There's a good number of 33 more applications that need attention, but that work is ongoing, and there's a lot more to be done there. These are some of the anchor applications that the city runs on: the agenda management system, document management system, in response to reducing all of the paper we have and making PRAs easier and more transparent, etc. The HR, payroll, financial systems, city website upgrade, public safety, CAD, RMS. All of these applications, we did RFPs, we sat and evaluated vendors, negotiated contracts, and brought them to council in varying forms. And so these are projects that are on our plate right now, ready to go. Some of them already well underway, like the agenda management system, some more to come once we finish some of the first phase of projects. Information security is a huge aspect of maintaining the public trust in keeping the city's information private. And so we've spent a lot of time in this area, putting our policies together, doing a lot of work to keep the credit card payment systems safe and compliant. And then, given our employees are a key part of information security, rolled out a web-based security training for all staff. So they're very proficient, and they can spot phishing attacks and those kinds of things with much more ease. We've expanded the GIS program citywide, and we have an authoritative base map, like I have presented in the past. We had 13 different ways in which we spelled avenue. We reconciled all of those together. We have one consistent base map that we're using across all departments. We're putting all of the asset management information in there. The Parks and Rec department is doing a park assessment study. We're taking all of that data, putting into GIS, tying into work order tracking system. So there's a lot more automation. And it's not only the implementation of the system. These are significant lifestyle changes, as I'd like to call it, within their departments that requires business process re-engineering and an entire culture shift in a new way of doing things. People were doing stuff in paper or just keeping it within their minds, and now it's in iPads out in the field where the assets are being tracked in real time. So these are very, very big projects, not from an IT point of view, but from a business transformation point of view. And I think one of the comments and points that Deanna asked me was, what is the capacity within the departments to do some of this business analysis and some of the business process re-engineering? And that becomes a very important aspect to address as we repay off some of the significant technical debt that the city has accumulated over the past few years. And so this part is, each of these accomplishments address some part of that. Last year I came before you in awarding the contract to Unisys for 4 years. So this was a very competitively bid process. This took a year to do. We invited the best of the service providers to compete. And as part of that, we're replacing some of the IT service management ways of doing things. So rather than call the help desk, the ability to use your smartphone or to provide some of those help desk type features within multiple channels. So that's to come in the next year. We received an award for excellence from our Municipal IT Association of California, MISAC, as well as the city's development projects GIS-based story map, which is very popular, which a lot of you in the public and council and staff visit daily. The Community Development Department maintains and updates it. Received the California Association of Public Information Officials Award, again for merit, which was validating in what we're doing. And as we heard from a professor at UC Berkeley, he uses this example in his classes to teach how we should do public information to the community and share how development projects are the whole story is told through these story maps. So that's also very, very helpful. cybersecurity is a key part of what we do on a daily basis. As you've heard of some of the breaches that are happening in out there, we've got 66,000 electric meters, all of the utility billing account, public information, private information, personal identifiable information, or criminal justice information, or just health information for the fire emergency folks. So there's a large assortment of very private information of our residents that the city collects, and as maintaining and stewards of the public trust, we spend a lot of time in this area. So this is an ever-moving target. Last year, we hit a new record in terms of revenue collections through our utility billing. So the banks imposed further compliance aspects that we're now addressing. And so this is a constant moving target, and whether there are policy issues or other internal safeguards, this is a constant area that we touch and feel. And we're spending a lot of time in this area in the background, whether it's keeping the city safe from virus attacks or malware attacks. We had 2 malware attacks in the last couple of years, but that didn't become a big news because we recovered from it very fast. We've got the right controls, we've got the right backups, and rather than being held to ransomware and paying Bitcoin, we were able to solve that internally. And so, again, a lot of good work going on in those areas. So now to operational constraints. In my department, there's myself and there's one manager who really the IT folks within my department. The rest are admin staff, management analysts, and FTEs that are paying the bills, helping with cell phones and smartphones, etc. And we've got 3 key vacancies: a business relationship manager, an IT operations and services manager, and an IT manager focused for public safety, given how strategic and important they are. These are 3 vacancies that we have that's been approved in the budget. So working with HR, bringing this forward, this will be a big aspect of our ability to maintain the pent-up demand that we have right now in providing that leadership as all of these systems hit together at the same time. Along with that, I'd like to compete with the finance department for you to come out, or not you come out, but just the state of our office staff and the space that we're crammed in. And I think a part of this is providing the right space for the collaboration within the departmental teams to come together as these projects are happening. Some of these projects require multiple departments to come together, sit in one area as these multi-department systems are being implemented, and having those project collaboration spaces is an important part of it. So creating that startup mentality and culture, creating that vibe and the ability for folks to implement some of the systems or consultants to come in during those times. So that's a key area that we have. There's an unprecedented demand for IT services. We have 33 aging systems like I told you about, but there's a total full plate, and I'll show you some of the projects that we have in 5 key strategic focus areas that we're either running at 100 miles an hour with. We also need an IT governance structure for prioritization and strategic decisions and allocating those scarce resources on a citywide basis. Right now, I'm working with each of the departments, but at some point we need to have that governance and on a citywide basis, and the city manager is already tuned into that, and she actually asked me about that, so we're going to be launching that in the coming year. None of these projects are really IT projects. These are all opportunities for doing business transformation using IT. So a whole lot of departmental sponsorship and ownership is key to accomplishing those business transformation goals. Whether it's agenda management system, and again, that's a key example. We implemented the software fairly easily, but the change management, the culture change, how to write those agenda reports differently, and that leadership is coming from the city manager's office, and I really appreciate that. And that's what's going to be required in each one of those areas. We need to focus on this, and we don't have that capacity within the departments across the board, so that there'll be some need there to identify and to address that. Also, in the past, we've looked at IT projects and we've accounted for the hardware and the software and some of the consultant dollars, but not the backfill, not for some of the staff cost that it takes to implement some of those systems. So we need that true accounting and budgeting, and we need to be realistic about what it'll take. Otherwise, we've skimmed on that, and then that's come back and hurt us. We've had delayed projects, and so that's becoming much more transparent as we go forward. Areas of opportunity, multiple areas of opportunity in having innovative digital strategies for citizen-centric outcomes. Again, creating transparency, creating the ability for anytime, anywhere, service delivery, the citizen request management system that we talked about, improving some of these data decision outcomes through a public portal, open data, again, reducing the number of PRAs by having our document management system have the records in there. Right now, a lot of those records are in paper, but if we digitize those records, then the public and community can actually go in and search for keywords and get to that information. So, but that takes some time to set up and change that across citywide. Smart city implementations. We've had a couple of smart city conferences right in this room where we've talked about, and the mayor's given the keynote there. There's an opportunity for some strategic development such as City Place, as well as some of the other unique opportunities and development that we have to intersect smart city and to embed that within the development process. Again, that's the time and place, and I think we can use that as a template for some of the smart examples throughout the city from there. Business process reengineering, we talked about a lot of paper in the enterprise. Opportunities for training is key. Some of that information that's in people's minds, the tribal knowledge, to have a knowledge base, to put all of that information in there, that makes better decisions and much more collaboration as we go. And opportunity for collaboration and consolidation, if you have multiple systems in multiple departments, the opportunity for taking those and making them into one system is also there. So this eye chart, I don't expect you to be able to read it very clearly. Represents some of the key projects that you've been hearing about: the agenda management system, the website redesign, the citizen request management system. I won't read out all of the names of the projects, but they fall into 5 strategic areas. One is application modernization. We've got multiple applications that are old, end of life. They represent risk. They need to be replaced and give us better functionality. And so they're representing the first area. Infrastructure needs to be upgraded. That's the second area. GIS, everything we do in the city addresses some part of the city's geography. To the extent we can maintain that and manage that and have it holistic for other decision making, that helps the city manage its assets better. Citizen engagement and communication is a key aspect. We heard you loud and clear. The city's website, the citizen request management system, other social media channels working in the city manager's office. And finally, cybersecurity, don't leave home without it. You need adult supervision in that area. Finally, in summary, for my department, in spite of some of the aging systems, we provide stable IT services across the city. My team, they're behind the scenes 24/7, weekends, nights, when crises happen, they're managing. That incident response is happening well. There's a lot of work to do, like we talked about. There's an unprecedented demand. The departments are hungry. They're looking to the IT department, but I need to work in partnership with them. They too need to own some skin in the game in having this. It's not an IT implementation, like it's a business implementation like we talked about. Committed staff working very hard, but some of those vacancies that we have just will relieve my staff from working the long stretches we do, and really committed. In fact, my department has also the distinction of all city staff, my key department managers, all live within the city of Santa Clara. So there's a huge commitment to not only working here, but actually living in the city. So we're all unified and are wanting to create a better community within the city. There's a tremendous support from you, but there's tremendous opportunity in support of council priorities in the city's mission, and then desire throughout the organization to shed that paper-intensive processes and to move to a more progressive, modern way of doing business. Thank you.
Mayor, council, city manager. We're going to talk now about the operational priorities for the city clerk and auditor's office. City clerk and auditor's office has 7 full-time employees We deal in three main topic areas: council admin, public info, and legislative record management, and then the elections and the political process or political reform act. Service delivery and customer highlights. Many of the other departments will mention who they view as their main customers. And we view our customers as three primary folks. The first is the council, in servicing you through the process of the agenda and that side of our office to allow you to very deliberatively maintain your duties under the city charter to provide policy leadership for the city on behalf of the public. The next we view is the city manager's office and staff, and in fact all the departments. We end up working with each one of the departments, as you see, as the end product in the agenda, but also providing simple services like mail services and the day-to-day operations that need to be at a central resource at City Hall where every department goes to every day. And finally, the public, and allowing them access to very transparent government and their ability to influence you as opinion leaders through the process of governance as is outlined. And in fact, we view that process of governance as an overlying trait for the city clerk's office, as something that we try and foment in a manner that's effective, but also that we're obligated to do. You're aware of the Brown Act, the city charter, the state constitution, and our various good government laws, all of which we view as very important with regards to implementing processes for our three customers in a manner that's open and patent and meets legal requirements and best practices. Our primary service delivery areas are meetings and agendas, general services, board and commissions services, the elections process and FPPC compliance, and then outreach regarding our various good government laws, the lobbyist registry, open calendar policy, and the Political Campaign Finance Reform Act, which we provide administrative compliance for, and then internal control auditing functions. And we'll hear a lot of talk today with regards to the auditing process. And it's important to point out that the auditing process outlined in the city auditor's role in the city charter is different than is talked about in many cases. This is not the CAFR or the external auditors that we see from the finance department. This is not the stadium authority audit, nor would this be performance auditing, as is talked about as something that's very necessary for the city. Oftentimes these require specific licenses, credentials, things like that. The auditing that we talk about in the city charter is very specific to the finances of the city, and it says the city auditor shall audit and approve all bills, invoices, payments, demands, or charges against the city government before payment, as a shortened version of it. In modern terms, those would be thought of as internal controls, and they're implemented by a team of staff people in the city clerk's office who are very, very talented and work with our external auditors to put together the best practices, but really are focused on the daily grind of doing boot reimbursements and travel reimbursements and petty cash reimbursements and auditing purchase cards and the payroll and things like that, processing payroll checks, which are simply foundational to the process of governance and are good to have located at City Hall and in the clerk's office. Next, I'll highlight just a few accomplishments over the last year and a half or so. We completed the largest election process in the history of the city of Santa Clara, 18 candidates and 4 measures. We completed the launch of the lobbyist registry and open calendar programs, and we assessed and identified vendors for major system-wide technologies, the agenda and document management systems, e-signatures, and the Public Records Act tracking system. We all know that we're working increasingly hard at the city of Santa Clara, and this is a good slide that just shows you what you see on your side as the council. We've had a 62% increase in the number of posted agendas between FY14 and 15 and what we expect to see this year. And this is the posted agendas for the council, stadium authority, special study sessions, and the oversight board. It's important to acknowledge, though, that as that trend increases, it's not just the work that the clerk's office has to do every time we post an agenda. It's also the policy work, the staff work, the coordination work, and everything that goes on behind the scenes on a staff level and on the city manager's office side to make sure that as the policies make it to the city council, they're provided to you in a patent manner. So that 62% increase in the number of posted agendas on behalf of the clerk's office can also be mimicked with regards to the overall workload increase for the staff members who are providing input to that process, and in some cases probably more so. We, of course, also are working on the Granicus agenda management system that will be launched in March. We're very excited about that as a user interface. However, we'll take some additional time to transfer all the data over. And immediately following that, we'll pivot to the Laserfiche and Next Request Public Records Act tracking system implementation. It's important to note that the city does not have a centralized way, not just of fulfilling Public Records Act requests, but even tracking which ones are submitted and ensuring that they're complied with in a timely manner. The Next Request system would allow us to at least track which are received and to provide reminders and guidance to the departments and subject matter experts as they implement those Public Records Act requests as to the timeliness and when they've been posted. And also it'll allow us to post them online so that we may, in fact, have already answered someone's questions if we can simply point them to a Public Records Act request of a similar content that is either timeless with regards to the data or has been responded to in a manner which is still timely enough that the data is valid. We'll also have the document sign e-signature system, which we are ready to implement as we move forward. Of course, we have the 2018 general municipal election and primary special election, which you know will occur. And you've heard earlier today that we may also have a concurrent special election in November to consider a number of members of other measures, the cannabis measure being one of them. However, there may be others as well. And then we also have the potential of implementing district-based elections and a new voting system in November of 2018 and assisting the city manager's office and the city attorney's office as appropriate with regards to the districting process. This gives you a general idea about our long-range planning and our workload forecast. You'll see that we have accommodated here that 62% increase in the number of posted agendas, but you also have a whole lot of things that happen in about the same time frame. The clerk's office and many of the departments at City Hall are statutorily obligated to comply with certain laws in order for government to function. And I often say the agenda process doesn't stop. It doesn't matter that we also have a number of other things to do. If we have an agenda that we need to put out, our office will have to pivot away from focusing on one of these institutional goals that will allow us long-term to be more effective for the organization in order to meet those statutory requirements, which makes it difficult for us to grow long-term and be tactical for the city. And of course, the doing those in tandem, acknowledging that we are so short-staffed as a city makes it difficult to be able to pivot and do that effectively on a day-to-day, long-term strategic basis. So we do have operational constraints. We have the time to focus on major systems launches. At the same time, we maintain all of our central services, not for the city clerk's office, but for the institution that relies on the city clerk's office for these services, the city council, and the public, and of course the body of law that we need to comply with. We have our institutional efforts and training regarding major systems launches, and it's important to note that when we talk about those 4 major systems, training has to be done for our employees in each one of them to allow them to be able to use the systems. The city manager's office has been very proactive about providing much better guidance than we've seen in the past with regards to the agenda management launch. I'm hopeful that will continue with regards to the launch of our other 3 major programs. But at some point also, there becomes a saturation level with employees, where asking them to learn a number of new systems in a very short time frame may be one that we'll have to look at how to manage. And that lends itself to some extent to the current lack of some contemporary institutional processes and practices. Well, right now we're very paper-based in the city of Santa Clara, and bringing people out of the mindset where they can look at something via paper and spread it out on their desk, and growing the skill sets where they'll look at it on their control monitor or computer monitor is a different skill set. And of course we have current vacancies in the clerk's office that make it even more difficult to sustain this type of workload during a very critical time with regards to both technology and some of the practical needs of the process of governance and the election cycles. You've heard those mimicked with other departments as well. But it does offer some areas of opportunity. We have an opportunity to be less paper intensive, more collaborative and efficient, have greater accountability, provide a more robust and scalable technology, and provide higher caliber public input. And I'm hopeful that as we do this, we can produce more scalability for the organization, more transparency for the public, and also meet in a more sustainable manner for the city clerk's office the increased workload with our existing staff model. And finally, in summary, we have opportunities with regards to fundamentally changing and improving city operations, acknowledging that there are some realities regarding the ability to roll out multiple enterprise-wide systems in a short time frame, that there are additional already heavy workloads that we've outlined a little bit today already, and with critical staff vacancies that will impact our ability to do that, at least in the short term, while we fill those openings. At the same time, we have an incredible amount of challenges. We also have great opportunities for the city. We appreciate the leadership of the city manager and her new team and some of the insight that they bring from other agencies that allow us to be more effective and to look at new service delivery models and remain your city clerk and auditor's office and at your service.
Good morning, Mayor, City Council, fellow city staff, fellow city residents, and members of the public. I'm Brian Doyle, the City Attorney. I would like to remind everybody that, although this is a priority setting session, a large part of what the City Attorney does is not set by the City Council's priorities. It's set by outside forces. We defend the city against all lawsuits and claims, and that occupies quite a bit of our resources. But with the resources that we do have, we serve the City Council primarily, and the City Manager primarily, and City staff and the public at City Council meetings and behind the scenes in implementing a lot of the initiatives that the City Council directs us to. We have a relatively small staff for the amount of work that we have. We have 6 full-time employees, and we have a budget of $1.7 million. This budget does not include outside counsel, so we have a separate budget for that, and we do, most of our litigation costs are represented by this outside counsel budget. Our service delivery to customer highlights, again, we manage the claims and litigation. The average number of active cases that we're managing or handling per month is represented on the chart. It's quite a heavy workload for us to manage, but we are able to do that in conjunction with our outside counsel. In 2016, we completed quite a bit of legal services requests. Again, these are of varying magnitudes, but it was a very high number for our staff to handle and track. We have to keep track of all the deadlines in all the cases, so it's quite a bit of administrative work that our office handles. We staff all City Council meetings, Planning Commission meetings, Civil Service Commission, Council committees, and that's the Animal Control organization, and I can neither pronounce the acronym nor tell you what the full name of it is. But service delivery to the customer highlights. We provide increasing number of staff trainings on relevant areas of law, such as the Brown Act, Public Records Act. I'd like to get into some contracts training and contract writing training. We provide update on new legislation. We've had quite a raft of new legislation this year, especially in the area of affordable housing, which we have to keep abreast of and make sure we're keeping in line with. We successfully obtained 3 defense verdicts. We regularly defend the city in pitches motions. These are motions to get after some of our police officer records. We prosecute city code violations. These are largely code enforcement type actions. We provide support for employee discipline before the Board of Review, and we are heavily involved in numerous significant Public Records Act responses. And this is also another area which I'd just like to highlight, represents a fairly significant burden on our workload, is dealing with the Public Records Act requests. And we're looking forward to some of the promised changes in terms of our record keeping, so that we have more able access to these records, that we can provide more records to the public directly, so that we're not spending the time searching for the records and reviewing them for whether or not they're publicly disclosable. We also successfully obtained a judgment in Santa Clara's favor in the City Place CEQA litigation, and we have settled the appeal in that. We have also successfully concluded settlement in the Santana West CEQA litigation, and I know the topic of revenue generation has come up, and I would like to point out that in this settlement, we were able to obtain $6 million in one-time revenue enhancement, which I think is a very good plus in terms of this settlement. We also successfully obtained an unlawful detainer judgment in Santa Clara's favor and obtained dismissal of contract litigation in the David's Restaurant matter. We had a pretty heavy workload this year in terms of getting through some significant policy implementations in the Service Worker Retention Ordinance, the Accessory Dwelling Unit Ordinance, Historical Preservation Ordinance, Affordable Housing Impact Fee Ordinance, the Parkland Dedication Ordinance, and the amendment of the Minimum Wage Ordinance. I'd like to point out that the city staff, city manager's office, as well as the planning department played a very significant role in accomplishing these, but we had a significant role as well. We were also heavily involved with the Stadium Authority arbitration, which has the arbitration hearing phase has been concluded, but there is still some briefing going on with that, as well as there's an ongoing declaratory relief action which was filed against the Stadium Authority that we are still dealing with, but both of these cases have represented somewhat of a heavy workload for our office as well. We've completed negotiations and environmental review processes and development entitles for the City Place project. We worked on the Lawrence Station area plan. We were involved in reviewing all of the city's environmental review documents, EIRs, and mitigating negative declarations and mitigating and neg decs as well. And we're responding to significant changes in state law with regarding marijuana use or cannabis, and we'll be working in tandem with city manager's office and staff in getting the city ready for its response to that as well. Upcoming policy issues: affordable housing, affordable housing, affordable housing. That's a common theme here in Santa Clara. We have a lot of issues with regard to that. One issue which is still outstanding and we hope to come back soon on is the request to consider payment of prevailing wage with respect to reduction in fees for that. We still have stadium issues related to non-NFL events. We're making progress on that, and you'll hear more about that in the coming year. We still have to implement several of the audit recommendations coming out of the stadium audit. We have several very significant specific plans, Tasman East, El Camino Real downtown. We have subject which is very near and dear to my heart, which is a comprehensive zoning ordinance update. I think our zoning ordinance really needs a real overhaul, and I'm hoping that will result in less of a workload for the council. I think there's some areas where we can change the zoning ordinance to be more streamlined in terms of processing some of these decisions. There are several proposed charter amendments, the most significant of which is the creation and implementation of districts and going to a new way of voting in Santa Clara. That's going to be a very heavy priority on our office this coming year, and I just wanted to get your acknowledgement on that part of our workload. We have operational constraints. I think we probably are understaffed in terms of in-house attorneys. I'd like to take a look at using less outside attorney work and trying to do more of the work in-house. And so we'll be looking at that. We really don't have much workspace. It's been eaten up by some other people in the city hall, and we're kind of stuck in a very small space. And the city manager, Deanna, has really emphasized this, and I really want to emphasize it with the council. There really has been a very significant lack of risk management resources. Our office has been tasked with filling in some of the cracks, but we are not insurance coverage experts, nor are we risk managers in our office. It's with a city of this budget, with the enterprises that we have, we need a professional risk manager who can really assess the risk and communicate those risks to the council when you're making decisions. It's really an important function that I think will have to be brought forward this year. And again, one of the constraints is paper. I mean, my hand hurts from all the times I have to sign a piece of paper, and I hope that we can move forward into the 21st century on that one. In summary, we'll continue to provide what I feel is a very high level of support to the council and the manager's office and the departments. We're enthusiastically assisting with upgrades to the city's workflow processes so we can get things to go more smoothly. We have some significant projects that we need to work on. City Place, when I say convention center, I mean just untangling the web of encumbrances on this property on which we're sitting right now is very significant and complicated. And then again, the Stadium Authority remains a significant workload in our office, and even working on some of these business process improvements, and I'm not talking about just new systems. I'm talking about reviewing our contract forms, reviewing a lot of how we do business. I think there's really areas where we can really create some improvements and by the way, make some savings along the way, both in reducing risk as well as just in time and effort, and not having to redo things. Again, in summary, we're considering this priority right now. We really need to deal with the Voting Rights Act litigation, which is significant. We need to deal with the charter amendment that's coming forward. We need to really participate very strongly with reviewing the practices and improving the practices in public works process, the procurement process, and other business practices with the city, and provide assistance with the Public Records Act request responses. And with that, I think I am concluded.
Very good. Thank you, Brian. Okay, so that takes care of cluster number 1, your strategic operational support departments. IT, finance, you had clerk's office, attorney's office, and HR. So, questions, comments, reactions? Councilmember Davis.
There seems to be a resonating common theme of space. You don't have any place to work, huh? Yeah, it seems that, and Guap brought it up, where there are multiple interdepartment where you guys have to work together, and you're not being able to do that. So I guess that to me is a major priority. I guess the city manager is going to address that one. But if you're going to do your jobs and there's a lot of crossover, to me, that is a huge function. If you can't get the job done and you don't have the space to do it in, then what are we doing here? The other thing that I heard repetitiously was too much paper. Okay, so that's efficiency. I mean, if you guys are wasting so much time on paper or signature, I mean, Brian, how many things do you sign? I mean, so it's like one of those things. If we need to get the technology. I mean, when people look at Santa Clara, they look at Silicon Valley. How come we don't have the technology? They look at us as the leaders. So, and our city is kind of, it seems like we're in this provincial back world here. So, I guess you have a big task, a daunting task at you just from these people that I just heard from. So I don't know what the answer is to that. I guess we will have to look at building space or places for these people to actually do their jobs effectively. And I know that my outcry from the residents, they don't have community rooms to also engage in conversation. So maybe we have a hybrid or a crossover or some building that, I don't know what the answer is. That's kind of your job. But what I'm hearing is that you guys need some help. And I think you have to be at a level where you can do your job. The paper alone, that just blows my mind the way I'm hearing it. It doesn't sound very efficient. It sounds like when you try to get us information to make good policy decisions, maybe we're not getting it all because you guys are constrained in time and other things that you have to do. So I had no idea it was as bad. And once again, this is goal setting. So we get to hear all these issues and make some priorities. And it just seems to me like our foundation needs to be rebuilt a little bit here. So those are just my comments, just from the 4 areas of these folks, our department heads. Thank you for everything that you do. Once again, I know this is really difficult, but it helps us do our job. So I thank you.
Great. And we'll go on to other comments and questions here, but picking up on 2 of the themes that I heard as well, paper heavy, right, and need to move away from that in space. Any sort of initial reactions to either one of those, Deanna?
So I did want to highlight, because we kind of glossed over it through part of one of the presentations, our IT department has less than 10 staff and 3 vacancies, and this is the department that we are depending on the most to get us out of these manual paper processes. On top of that, if you listen to Liz, what she shared with you is when we did finally automate, there is a desire in-house to still maintain the paper process while, you know, avoiding the automation. And then we also heard about the need for IT governance. And let me just kind of piece these together for you, why they come and need to be looked at so connected. We have right now a system that is really not a system. We have needs of updates of software processes or replacements. And we don't have any management throughout the organization of how is it that we're going to face, what are the most strategic investments to move the organization based on what people are working on, what's on their horizon. And so we really do need internally to establish that IT governance so that we say, if we're working on the CAD replacement, that means we cannot do X, Y, and Z because that's going to absorb our resources in this manner. Or if we're working on our financial systems replacement, that's going to absorb the whole organization. And here's how we have to phase in other softwares. There's no governance of that right now, and that's what we have to put in place. But on top of that, what I also hope that you received is when you think of IT implementation, you need to think of process, people, and product. And we don't have business analysts that help us look at how do we change our business processes to conform to the product, the new product, and then what are the people involved that we need to either backfill or commit to implementing this correctly. And our agenda management system is an excellent example, and I will share some of the real tales of how we're doing this. On the one hand, we have a Granicus system. We're deploying in March. We're training. We're getting all involved for that. You will see the replacement report templates that we'll bring to you next Tuesday for your consideration because of the limitations of the software and the new way that we'll produce the agenda with the reports. Major change management. But in this process, we really have had to accelerate how we commit the people time to changing. And as you know, change is very hard personally. You can imagine how change is for an organization. And that is happening right now in real time, and we're having to talk with people about why the system is as it is and how we have to make those changes. But what is also happening right now, and again, because we didn't think about the people in the backfill, it came up as a bullet, but here's the real life example. If you look at putting out this packet, people were working, and then they went in and training on Granicus, and then we had to go into production mode, which means the packet didn't get out till 10:15 at night. The next day, staff came to work. They went to Granicus training during the day, and then because we have a council meeting on Tuesday, at 4 o'clock, they stopped their training so they can get into production for the agenda packet, which meant if you look at the timestamp, it was 9 o'clock. I watch these things because I need to know how our staff is being paced, whether they're exhausted, and whether we need to be mindful of the human condition of how we absorb our work and also pace ourselves. That's how we will present, because for lack of having these processes in place and the need to get Granicus to turn the corner, that's how we'll spend the next couple months until we get into our March launch. I can tell you Granicus is life-changing. I've used it in other organizations, and an automated council agenda process is life-changing for an organization. but it means we have to change quickly, and we have to learn in the people, the process, and the product very quickly in a short time frame. We can replicate this around the other 33 systems that we have, and you start to understand, if just by this 2-day session with Granicus that I shared with you, how that's going to be replicated throughout the organization. And I thought it was important to surface because these are absolute systems that need to be replaced. And you know, we will sometimes be on 3 wheels, other times we'll be on 4 wheels, but we'll certainly get there.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you. Other comments, reactions, questions to what we heard on the strategic support departments? Everybody okay? Is everybody good? Yes.
Okay.
Madam Mayor?
Thank you for that explanation, and Debbie for your comments as well. Because it does sound like not only the systems need replacing, but you know, at some point, and I know it's a longer assessment of the building facilities. I mean, you're talking, we have 6 council members and 2 staff members in 1 office. So we know what it's like to be, you know, cramped in there. And I've seen the types of buildings that are built, especially in the high-tech community, where they really encourage a lot of collaboration. And I know Gaurav talked about that, where you know, having these spaces that are open and available for not just the IT department, but other departments to be able to collaborate, I think is much more important now in today's world. And when these buildings were designed back 60 years ago, is it? In the 60s? You know, things have changed. Things have changed. And I want to say, just listening to the different departments now, our staff has taken on so much more over the years with the same staff leveling, and in certain cases with a reduction in staff. So I think that it's, I'll just call it a minor miracle that we are functioning as effectively as we are, given what has been thrown on our city, especially in the last 10 years. It's incredible. So I'm really proud of what the staff has done and how they're moving things along. One of the things, I just had a couple questions from the different presentations. One is that I think Liz Brown talked about our recruitment increasing by 43% and applications by 37%. Are we an anomaly, or is this happening in other cities as well? So that was a question I had.
Go ahead, Liz. Yeah.
Yes, Mayor Gilmore, this is a trend we're seeing across the board. We hear about it at all our county HR director meetings when we get together. It's a common theme, common problem.
Okay, thank you. I just
well, it's a good problem, but
right. I just want to know where we stood in the big scheme of things.
Can I just add, because that goes hand in hand with our manual processes, and you know, I try to always bring humor in the workplace, and I was really amazed when I came in and we were still using color coding processes of our paper, right? Of this orange sheet means this blue sheet means that, and when you are trying to attract in the Silicon Valley, and particularly millennials, right? We ask our employees to step into an organization that is likely functioning in a 70s, 80s circa, and we are trying to attract the best, the brightest, right? And in turn, we need to think about how we offer employment opportunities that attract that and that match the skills, right? People come in and in the private sector, they get laptops and, you know, other types of things. That's not, you get an orange coated paper and a blue coated paper and a green coated paper, and if you don't sign it, it comes back 100 times.
Right, and I think that's just indicative of where we are at the moment, and I don't expect it to change overnight. It's going to be a long process. I know when you hand us the, you know, electronic devices, it was difficult for me, at least, to go from the ginormous packet to the iPad and, you know, trying to do things, you know, this way. But it's much nicer once you're comfortable with it. And I think there's a huge educational process for everyone, including the things, you know, the way we've always been doing things. But the fact of the matter is we must be competitive out there to attract the best and the brightest. And sometimes we have to get out of our comfort zone in terms of, you know, recruitment and to make sure, because in the long run, and I think we have to look long term at everything we do, and we've been doing that as well, is we have to look at, you know, what investment we make in our employees and others to bring back the type of return that we're looking at in the long run will generate efficiencies and financial savings for us as well. So there's going to be a slightly uncomfortable period going through it, but we have to have a plan. And I think what we've lacked in the past is an actual strategic plan. So I'm happy we're on the right track. So thank you, Liz, for that.
You're welcome.
Another question I had was, for Gaurav, which was really, how are we surviving in your department with those three vacancies, and just about the collaboration, space collaboration that I know is a much larger discussion about City Hall, not just for the IT department, but for others. So I think it's been addressed about the question about your vacancies, because those vacancies are critical and they need to be filled. And then for the city attorney's office, Brian, I just wanted to know, is your office going to be the lead in the contract management and property management in terms of the contracts? Because I think that, again, in my opinion, is a missed opportunity for revenues and things that we have been a little lacking on in the past. So I don't know if it's city managers, your office, or a combination of both in terms of contract management and asset management. Is that on? You're on.
I would assume it would be a cooperative effort between myself and the manager. I don't think I can manage property. I can certainly assist with the property management function. I see the real need there, and I have some experience with it. And for contracts, obviously, we would provide the legal expertise on what the contract should look like, and I have a lot of experience as well with work processes for contracts and procurement and all that. So I think it would be, in both projects, we'd be working collaboratively with the manager's office. And since, I really don't see ourselves as a lead, because these are all services to the departments, and we're going to have to really coordinate very closely with the manager's office in implementing both of these efforts with the line staff, because they're the ones that really work on these things.
So once the contracts then are executed, my concern is what happens after. Who's going to be looking at those and managing those, once that happens? So that's predominantly my question.
What we need first is a contracts management database, so that we can look up contracts and understand what issues we may need to address as we manage them going forward, or query which ones are about to expire, and start to understand where we're at with renegotiating the terms or doing RFPs for new services or things of that sort. So it would be a citywide system, so that departments can have access to the contracts that provide the services that they need. We also need the protocols in place, so from the forms, the contracts themselves, the training for staff, and it needs to link to our procurement system, so that we know how to do the all the different procurement of services that end up in contract. Ideally, it would be housed in the manager's office, because it is a citywide function and it's an enterprise, but there are opportunities that we could link into as we look at prevailing wage compliance, right? That is by nature also part of contracts management, and other types of services that are starting to emerge in this area that really require that an organization have a handle of all of its contracts. So there's training, there's forms, there's systems, and there's just citywide deployment.
All right, thank you. And the last thing I had for the city attorney is the Public Record Act's request. We're receiving them, I'm probably in record numbers now, mainly focused on a couple of us, including me, out there from just a couple of sources that are giving regular requests that cost our city, so much money. But I'm really interested, because I'm sure they're just going to continue on a weekly basis. An easier way for us to be able to get that information out. Because I know, certainly, I can only speak for myself, some of the requests from these two particular organizations are coming in and they're asking for a lot of the same material. So how can that information be put out there so it saves our city a lot of money and time?
Well, what I'm hearing is that we have in process. Can you hear me? Okay. What we have in process is a new automated system that will both track the Public Records Act requests, and I think the goal would be, and the city manager can help me out here, it would be to, for example, someone makes a Public Records Act request, there's a response, automatically, you know, by definition, whatever we give out is public record at that point, and so we could then post a link to that so that if anyone wants to see whether someone had already made a Public Records Act request for a certain set of records, they could just go to the city's webpage, for example,
find it somewhere,
and
so
find that
there's-
the information has already been requested and posted. The other aspect to that is to simply just start posting public information in a way that people could search themselves, and then they could do their own searching for the publicly available information, and it would require less effort. And obviously the whole effort towards transitioning out of paper and into electronic records makes that easier as well. It's a lot harder when you have to go through a bunch of paper and then copy it and then look through the copies to see what's disclosable and not disclosable.
Because of at the pace that these are coming in, it's going, if we don't do something like that, it's going to require hiring new staff people for these ongoing,
it's a significant
repetitive
resource.
requests.
It's a significant resource, and I think in the long run, the expenditures on this new system, as well as getting the information out there, but it's going to take time for the electronically available information to be made directly available to the public. So in the meantime, I think you're correct that there will continue to be, let's say for the next year or two at least, the public should recognize that it is a drain on the resources of the city, that we cannot, for example, if we're responding to Public Records Act requests, that lessens the amount of resources we have to, for example, assist with some planning effort.
All right, thank you.
And did I hear, Mayor Gilmore, that you were looking, can we get information out that we normally don't always put out, but it's okay to make it public so we prevent PRAs from the beginning? Was that?
Right, and even, again, I can only speak for myself. I get them from a couple of organizations, and they're duplicate requests. Yeah. So if you could put the information out so everyone can see it, maybe they can just grab it. So our staff isn't spending all this time on the same request from a couple of organizations.
I just want to add that that links very closely to our technology and our state of and the need to improve or update it, because many cities are starting to provide open data, and it starts with your technology systems being able to link into open data platforms so that your resident can just go in and understand your budget and query it in different ways, and other types of open data systems. It's a very popular trend that's happening out there amongst local governments. The issue is your technology has to be ready for open data platforms. And if you're antiquated in your technology, it's very hard to get there. And so it is, I don't want to put Gaurav on the spot, but it is something that came up through the finance presentation about open data for budget.
Right.
Good.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Excellent. And other questions, reactions, responses to the strategic support presentations? Yes, Vice Mayor?
Thank you. No, everything, I've had a lot of the same queries that my compadres have had here, but one thing that was discussed in the city clerk's presentation, thank you. The implementation of electronic signatures, which I think is great, and I know our staff has used, or I've given them authorization to, use it for a couple of things, that letters that need to be sent out on my behalf. But at the same time, too, would there be oversight? Instead of just you saying, okay, let's just put an electronic signature on, say, a PRA, for instance, and just sending out. Would there still be oversight? I think that's important too, because that's where things can get a little bit slippery.
So one of the key elements of this is that we're looking at a DocuSign type of system where there's a lot of security, and in fact, financial institutions are beginning to implement at higher levels DocuSign, so you can sign contracts and sign financial transactions through that type of secure system. We probably should revisit how we use our electronic signatures that are done on PDF. It's not a best practice. I had a signature go out on a wrong document citywide in another city that I worked for. Incredible risk because the document wasn't locked so that someone couldn't go and pick up my signature. Wow. And so we want to make sure that as we transition to that, where we're using a manual e-sign right now in the system that you're referring to, we want to get into the real secure systems. So we protect we manage our risk and we protect our secure signatures.
Yeah. Thank you.
So the DocuSign, actually, the document comes to you. We use that in the real estate world. We have for a long time. The document comes to you, can see what you're signing, and then you authorize the signature. So you're not saying, here's my signature. It's okay to use it. Yeah.
We've created a manual internal process, which a lot of organizations have, but there's risks associated with it. It can be picked up, copied, and sent out on other documents.
Okay, looking to council, mayor and council, any other questions, comments, reactions? Okay, so let's check in on where we're at, and thank you, presenters. You all came in under time except for IT, but that's okay. A couple minutes over, but who's counting, right? So we're actually ahead of schedule here, which is wonderful. So I'm going to suggest that we take lunch now. And so we spend 30 minutes on lunch, and then we'll come back after lunch, and we'll start with cluster number 2, and that will be library, parks and rec, and your water and sewer utilities. That'll be cluster number 3. And we will probably need the break in between that cluster because we've got the hard public presentation comment at 12:45. Okay. So does that work for folks to take the break now? So looking at the clock, we've allocated 30 minutes for lunch. So if we reconvene at 12:20, that gives us 30 minutes for lunch, and then we can start in cluster number 2. Very good. So we're on break now, and we'll reconvene in 30 minutes.
Thank you.